Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm very pleased to have Jack Darakjian as my guest today. Jack is the founder and executive director of Modern Support Services, LLC, a Glendale-based agency that provides individualized community and home-based services, such as supported living services and independent living skills, to individuals with special needs and other challenges. Jack was appointed as a commissioner on Los Angeles County's Commission on Disabilities in 2018 and serves as an advisory council member of the Disability Organizing Network, a statewide advocacy organization. His passion for empowering people and helping them to stand proud has included helping runaway teenagers at 1736 Family Crisis Center, providing support, supervision, and education at UCLA's Neuropsychiatric Institute, serving as a mental health worker and service coordinator at the Frank D. Lanterman Regional Center, and currently as the CEO of Modern Support Services. Jack has a BA in psychology and a master's level education from California State University in Long Beach. He has co-authored 3 papers on addiction and received a Character and Ethics Award from the City of Glendale in 2014. Welcome, Jack, and thank you so much for joining me today to discuss various housing and support options for people with special needs.
Thank you, Gilda. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
So to begin, can you please describe some of the various living arrangements for a person with special needs and the differences between them?
Sure. So before I actually begin talking about that, I want to say that to all the listeners, things are changing. Shift is happening. So please remember to be involved in your community and be aware and become knowledgeable about various different services. The more knowledgeable you are, the more informed you are, the better you will provide support to your loved ones. So, thank you again. And so, going back to different living options, there are different ways of choosing where a loved one would live. One is a group home. Another is called the Family Home Agency, or FHA. There are other services that you may be able to receive while living in your family's home, such as adaptive skills or in-home support services. There are programs called independent living services, as you mentioned earlier, and supported living services is somewhat of a different model. It's a much more involved model that includes a lot more thought process and planning.
Okay, and how does one go about choosing which of these models is best for their particular loved one? And by the way, what you said earlier I thought was very good advice, very wise words, and thank you for saying that. But to get back to the question, how would one determine whether a group home or a family home agency or living at home with various supported services, what are some of the factors to consider when choosing the right situation for your loved one?
So each case or each individual needs to be looked at separately, right? We work with different individuals, and that question often comes up. You really have to do your research, and it comes down to what fits your family needs and cultural needs and various other needs that may come up. Individuals have come up to me and said, well, we like the group home because my loved one, my son or daughter, can make friends. I have to say, personally, I'm biased against the group homes. I don't like that model. I believe and I think that anyone, regardless of the severity of the disability, is or should be given the opportunity with the right type of support and right amount of support should be able to get some kind of community-based services, whether that is independent living services or supported living services or adaptive skills. So the key here is to figure out and plan ahead to make sure to figure out what the needs of the individuals are. I mean, again, I can give an example and say, if you're looking for just the fact of friendship, then you're probably going to say group home is better because, as I said earlier, they can form, you're assuming that they could form friendships within that home. But it is not a natural setting, and everything needs to flow through a naturally based outcomes. I think your last week or the week before you had interviewed Dr. Logson. And
yes, Dr. Elizabeth Logson, right, from UCLA.
Right. Mm-hmm. She touched on, of course, the topic there was making friends, but she touched on things saying that there must be a natural way of doing things. So that's key. You need to make sure that whatever supports your son or daughter or your loved one is receiving comes naturally. You're not creating this makeshift world so that they may be able to live within that, but when they go out into the real world, real community, then they're not able to because things look much different. So that plays a big key on the deciding factor of where or what type of services your son or daughter or an individual with intellectual and developmental disabilities should receive. So as I said, I'm very much for more community-based supported living or independent living services.
Right, and there's no guarantee just because they move into a group home that they're going to get along with the roommates, or that they're going to like the roommates, or want to even develop any sort of social relationship with them. And I would agree with you that being out in the community and community-based, perhaps attending social skills groups to develop those particular skills, to learn how to reach out, make friends, maintain relationships, all that sort of thing, is preferential to just being thrust into a situation that may not be realistic, as you mentioned. So what kind, these support services that we were talking about, the independent living skills, supported living skills, and adaptive skills training and so forth, are these available through the regional centers in California? Are they government funded? Are they also available in other states? Because we have people listening who are not necessarily residents of California, where I know you are based. And as a matter of fact, you just told me you're expanding into other states as well. So you're probably very, very able to address that question.
Oh, yes. So they are, all of these services are provided or offered, I should say, through the regional center system at no cost to the individual receiving the services. All guidelines are the same. All support providers or service providers have to follow certain minimal guidelines to be able to provide these services. Other states are similar to California. The language is a little different. Other states that here if we say supported living or SLS, other states may call it something else, but it's the same concept and it's the same approach. One thing that is common as well is all states, including obviously the federal government and all states, are moving more towards community-based supports, whether that's community-based living or community-based employment. It is all geared towards community-based supports. no more congregate living, no more congregate workshops, no more group workshops. Although there may be some states that are still offering and providing some group-oriented employment, but it is not at the no more sub-minimum wage employment. All employment, I believe the deadline is, to be more specific, March 17, 2022. All workshops must be either closed or converted to some type of supported employment opportunities, and the living models are similar to that. There are group homes used to be more than 6. It could be 6 to 12 individuals. Then the system moved into more 6-bed group homes. Now the state of California prefers 4-bed group homes, and each individual must have their own separate bedroom, as opposed to before they could share a bedroom, 2 per bedroom. So now they're being a little bit more individualized. But again, it's the group home model, to me personally, is not the best model for someone to learn how to live as independently as possible, or to be as independent as possible. The group home model will still have certain structures that will prevent you to come and go as you please, as opposed to the supported living model will give you a lot more flexibility in doing what you like, what you love, what you need, what you want. Of course, as long as it's not illegal.
That is definitely a very important caveat to state there. But it sounds to me like things are, based on what you're saying, are moving towards a model of more independence, more inclusivity, just in general. So what are some of the basic qualifications in order to receive these kinds of support services that you mentioned?
Well, if within the regional center system, if you're in the regional center system, that means you have a diagnosis of an intellectual or developmental disability, which means that you are either maybe diagnosed with autism or Down syndrome or cerebral palsy, seizure disorder, or any other type of intellectual disability. The severity of the disability should not dictate where you live, how you live, with whom you live, right? There's always, if there is a service that you would like to receive and it is not sort of stated within the guidelines, then you should approach the regional center and say, this is what I'm thinking of, can we somehow make it work? And work through with the regional center to create that living situation. Again, regardless of severity of your disability or of the disability, the disability should not hold you hostage at home so that you won't be able to go out and have a life of meaning and value. Now, there are obviously certain barriers. There may be an individual who is very medically fragile. I'm not saying just disregard everything and go out and preach community involvement, but keep in mind that community involvement could come with different types of services. Maybe that's a nursing attachment to your supported living services, or if you choose the group home, there needs to be a certain nursing component or any other component, behavioral component, so that you are allowed, or an individual is allowed, to go out into the community, whether it's half an hour a day or 7 hours a day, depending on the needs, depending on the ability. But create those opportunities and put those different components together so you would be able to go out and enjoy life outside of four walls, I guess.
Okay, so then tell me, what are the steps for an individual with special needs and or their caretaker, parent, so on, to follow in requesting an out-of-home placement and or some of these accompanying support services that you've been describing?
Well, you have to go through the IPP process. The IPP process is very important within the state of California. So what you can do is contact your regional center service coordinator, preferably in writing, and request an IPP. And during that IPP, you should invite as many different individuals that may be playing a role in that individual's life as possible. So when you have an IPP meeting, all of the options, living options, should be put on the table, and you need to, as a parent, as an individual that will be choosing the type of service, you should be given different opportunities to contact different service providers and do the background checks and research, and then choose wisely and choose accordingly. So the IPP is key, though. You need to start with the IPP. If you can always call an IPP, by the way. You don't need to wait a year or 3 years to call an IPP. You can call an IPP, give 30-day notice, and call an IPP, and put a team together to meet and make decisions. And you don't need to get done within one session. If an IPP is a lengthy process because there are multiple needs, so be it. Then reschedule and have 2 or 3 different sessions to complete the IPP process.
Okay, so let's say that you've gone through the IPP process, you've discussed the various services that the person with special needs wants, and now you're in the process of looking for the various vendors that are going to provide these services. What are some of the most important things to look for in and questions to ask of a company that is providing these services?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. So obviously there are lots of different service providers. You need to make sure that the service provider, you can ask them, what kind of trainings do you provide to your staff? What kind of background checks do you do prior to hiring them? What kind of trainings do you provide prior to hiring them? You don't want, one of the things that we as an agency don't do is we're not in the business of hiring warm bodies. We want to make sure that when we hire someone, they're able and capable and willing to go out and do the job and do it right. Now, granted, not every hire, it's not realistic to say every person you hire is going to turn out that way. But having an agency that is involved, having an agency that works collaboratively within the agency, not only with the regional centers or with families, but within the agency, makes a huge difference. The oversight that you have on your staff make a difference. So parents or family members or support recipients should ask, what type of system do you have in place that would ensure that you are following up with your staff, right? So it's not often when someone is hired, you don't hear from the agency, from anyone else from the agency, until that person quits. All of a sudden, things become urgent and emergency, and so now you're contacted by someone from the agency that you've never heard of. Agencies must be working closely with the family, with the support recipient, so that there's always a backup to the backup. So if someone calls out sick, the management or the leadership knows what's going on, and when they send a replacement, that replacement staff knows and is aware of what's going on. Not necessarily having worked with the individual, but the fact that the leader or the management staff gives the appropriate information to the person that is completing the coverage for that day or for that shift or for that hour. It's very important for continuity and for feeling feeling comfortable. You don't want someone coming into your home not knowing who that person is and saying, "Oh, they didn't tell me," or "I don't know, they just sent me." You often, I often come across other agencies. They just say, "Oh, I don't know, they just told me to go and be there because there was no one else to cover." Well, you also want to...
Right, and they had no familiarity with the case or what the person was like, what their needs were, what their likes and dislikes were. Nothing. They just
Right.
went in totally blank.
Right. It's almost like cross training. You need to make sure that individuals are cross trained and information is being shared between one manager and the other, so that when something comes up with an individual, the other manager is not completely blindsided. They are already aware of some things that are going on. We have weekly meetings and monthly meetings, and these meetings are not just administrative meetings. We talk about different situations. We talk about different support recipients. The leadership team shares important information that, by the way, this is what's going on with this person. If something like this comes up, just be aware of it, because we have here's another thing you have to consider. What is the after hours process? We have an after-hours process where our management team rotates. So every week, one person takes on the emergency phone, and we have a live operator that answers the emergency live extension, and will relay the message, and the messages or the manager will return a phone call right away. Within 5-6 minutes, you'll get a phone call. But so those managers need to be aware of just about anyone within the agency, and that takes time and effort and energy. And agencies have to put in. The good agencies will have to put in that time and effort and energy into this. So if you have an agency that just doesn't give you real concrete examples or systems, then I would stay from those agencies.
And I would imagine that it is also very, very important to be as specific as possible in your IPP, to state exactly what the goals are, what the intentions are, what is going to happen, so that when it comes down to getting these services and requesting the services and going through the various agencies to follow through, it's all stated in the IPP so that everyone is on the same page and there are no misunderstandings.
Absolutely. The IPP is not just for what the services are, the current services are, but to plan for the future. And in order to plan for the future, you need to follow person-centered planning. And person-centered planning, in a nutshell, means that it's everything you're talking about is for that individual. You cannot generalize things and say, just because we did it for that person, we'll just go ahead and put it in. We're not fitting. I often say we're not. The service recipient is not getting services in a box. We, as service providers, have to fit in the service recipient's box instead, not the other way around. So, or whether that's a box or a circle or a rectangle or a triangle, whatever that shape may be.
Right.
So we need to make sure that as service providers, we are adaptive and we are flexible around the support recipient's life and lifestyle. So all of those things, though, need to be pointed out or written in some way or fashion in the IPP. So the IPP needs to be precise. It can be date or dated, I guess I can say. So it can say from, let's say, starting next month, May or April 1st through for a year or 12-month period, then this person will be receiving certain services. Or it can simply say, this person will be moving out sometime in the near future, and they will be receiving supported living services through modern support services for the duration while they're living in their own home. And services to be provided are, and just list the services, the different types of needs that the individual has. It can be money management, it can be safety training, it can be assisting individual with college attendance, it could be anything. It's up to you. It's your life. There are again, as long as it's legal, you can put it in the IPP, but it needs to be precise.
And the IPP is, as you were saying, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's very specific and tailored to the individual.
Yes, very much so. And there's always an exception clause, by the way. So if there's an IPP being held and a family member or recipient is being told, oh, we don't do that, or we can't do that, or that's too, the person is too high functioning, the person is too low functioning, as I mentioned earlier. But there's always an exception for everything. So the work needs to be done so that the exception comes into play. But there are lots of services where you can put in an IPP, not just living options, but it can be anything from recreational, educational, employment, medical, health, mental health services. I mean, lots of different things.
All right. Well, at this point, Jack, I would like to ask you if there's anything else you would like to add that we haven't gone over yet, and also, what do you think is the most important takeaway for our listeners to remember from this conversation?
Well, the most important takeaway in general, again, as I said earlier, be informed. Knowledge is power. There are lots of changes coming up. Don't be afraid of facing changes, because if you're afraid of facing changes, then you're not going to be able to proceed and get the best possible service for your loved one or for yourself. So some of the changes coming up are self-determination, and the closure of employment workshops, as I mentioned. One change that has happened already that was in the works for a while is the ABLE Act, which is someone can open an ABLE account. So don't be afraid. On a different note, just as far as modern support services, we do everything on a individualized case-by-case manner. We never say, well, let's lump people up and provide services for a whole group. Every individual has different needs, has different wants, different ways of approaching things, and so we pay a lot of attention, very careful and detailed attention to the individual's needs. We work collaboratively. It's important, and we work collaboratively with the family. We don't want to alienate any family members. We don't want to, because that's the natural supports that individuals have lived with their entire life, and we want to make sure that we see eye to eye. Trust and relationship is extremely important. You need to have trust and form good relationships and a bond with the support recipient and the families in order to succeed. Ultimately, the goal is to provide the best type of services to the support recipient in order for them to succeed. And if they succeed, then everyone else will succeed, whether that's the family member or the regional center or the service provider.
So how can our listeners reach out to you if they have questions or they want to know more?
So we provide services within LA and Orange counties. We're vendored with multiple regional centers within LA County and Orange County. They can contact us via phone, via email, or they can also go on our website. Our phone number is 818-244-2677, and our website is www.modernsupportservices.org. That's just one word, no spaces. And they can email me personally, and that's Jack Darakjian. That's spelled D as in David, ARAKJIAN, at modernsupportservices.org. So a number of ways.
All right. Well, very, very good. Thank you so much, Jack, for your time and for the extremely helpful information that you shared with us today.
Thank you very much, Gilda. I appreciate it.
I also want to thank our listeners for spending a part of their day with us. I'm Gilda Evans, reminding you to take care of yourself and that special person in your life.